Zella Clark I am in two minds about. On one hand, I think she does a well enough job, but she's just outshone by Timothy Dalton. And she doesn't look like Jane Eyre. I feel like her acting chops on an actor who actually looked like Jane Eyre would have made the role much more believable. Zella Clark could have passed as Blanche Ingram. She has a fairness to her that I don't think Jane should have. That was the whole point of Jane Eyre, the juxtaposition between such a passionate, strong and independent character wrapped in such an unassuming package that she was bypassed and ignored in wider society, the unlikely heroine. But Zella Clark isn't quite that, and she didn't have the frailty that Jane is supposed to have. I don't think she played the role terribly, it just didn't blow me away. Also, Dalton and Clark actually lack chemistry. I think Ruth Wilson in the 2006 version was the best all-rounder. She was able to embody both Jane's steadiness and her passionate nature. Maybe she too doesn't look exactly like Jane Eyre. I actually find Ruth Wilson very sexy, but somehow it didn't get in the way of her fitting into the role, unlike Clark. And obviously due to the puritanical standards of Bronte's time, Bronte couldn't go into the details in her book, but the desire that Jane and Rochester have for each other is most powerfully shown in this 2006 adaptation, especially when Rochester is trying to convince Jane to stay, and you can really sense the sexual tension between the two and how difficult it must have been for Jane to leave him. The other adaptations seem to focus more on the innocent romance of the two, while this one clearly reflects Jane's sexuality and how strong her desire for Mr. Rochester was. This series also takes certain liberties and changes and adds things that weren't in the novel, but it's not done in a jarring way, so you don't mind too much. I would say after Timothy Dalton, I like Toby Stephens in the role of Rochester the most. He is a gentler, less imposing Rochester, the way William Hurt did it, but somehow the way that Toby Stephens does it still manages to retain the spirit of Mr. Rochester, though there is more emphasis on his sadness rather than the dry, bitter, sarcastic energy he brings into the novel. The chemistry between the two actors is worthy of note, as I mentioned before. I did think that all the other interpretations that I talk about did lack the chemistry, but in this version it is very easy to believe that the two are lovers. The final adaptation I have watched is the 2016 version starring Mia Wasikowska and Michael Fassbender. Okay, so full transparency, I watched this years ago and I didn't like it, which means I didn't have the motivation to watch it again. So I am hoping my recollection of it is accurate. From what I recall, again, Jane was played too lifeless, very colourless. And again, like Hurt in the 1996 version, there was nothing about Michael Fassbender that was Edward Rochester. I just kept seeing Michael Fassbender and occasionally, weirdly enough, Magneto. I have seen Fassbender seamlessly embody roles, so it's not that he's a bad actor, he's amazing in the movie Shame. I have a review and an analysis of that movie on this channel, by the way, if you want to listen to it. But I just got the feeling that either Fassbender didn't read Jane Eyre, or read it but didn't get who Mr. Rochester was. The only thing I liked about this movie was that gothic ghostly moment when Jane hallucinates Helen as she lies exhausted and destitute in the wilderness. I know Jane Eyre is a difficult character to play. How do you relay to the audience through film that a character who is quiet and reserved on the outside is constantly roaring with passion and fire on the inside? That's some nuanced acting. So I try to give the actors who play Jane some grace, but maybe my expectations are too high. A tangent. I have a theory. I know Blanche Ingram is just a snobby elitist who only loves status and money in the book, and there is no indication that she's anything beyond that. But I thought, what if she was especially cruel to Jane because she sensed that there was something, a tension between Mr. Rochester and Jane that she couldn't put her finger on? Maybe Blanche didn't know the details, but it is important to highlight that Mr. Rochester's entire agenda in inviting Blanche to her family and her social group to Thornfield Hall was to test Jane to see if she would get jealous. Blanche was just a pawn in Mr. Rochester's chess game of love, and maybe she sensed that. Like, she sensed something was up, she just didn't know what it was. She just knew that that plain, insignificant, lowly little governess had something to do with it, and she lashed out at her. It wouldn't surprise me. We are not told too much about Blanche Ingram, and what we are told is through Jane, who is supposed to be a reliable narrator. But it's interesting to speculate. Maybe Blanche Ingram was the cruel, self-serving, manipulative, borderline sadist that gained pleasure from humiliating others. But that does not mean she was stupid. And I have often wondered what her reaction was, or would have been, when she found out about Mr. Rochester and Jane. Pure fury, I would imagine, then pure schadenfreude when she heard about Mr. Rochester's accident. Anyway, I may watch the much older adaptations of Jane Eyre at some point, and if I do, I may do an analysis of them. But that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed. Until next time, bye!